Okay, I'd like to introduce Bruce Embrey. He is the co-chair of the Manzanar Committee, and he's been our co-chair for many, many years. His mother was a founder of the committee, and that was Sue Embrey, and he is a strong supporter of our Manzanar Committee mission and of all our civil rights. And here he is.
Thank you. I forgot to mention she's my cousin. Wow. We come to Manzanar on this most important of anniversaries for many, many reasons. We come to honor our families, to honor those who endured life behind barbed wire in this desolate place. We come to Manzanar to pay respects to those who paid the ultimate price. We stand here in front of a cemetery. We honor those who paid the ultimate price, whether they died in isolated places far from home or on distant battlefields. We come to acknowledge and support this amazing civil rights park, built after many years of patient organizing, after decades of pilgrimages. We come to celebrate the passage of the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, when our community won redress and our families were given a modicum of redress and were apologized to by our Congress and by our nation. We were apologized to because our Congress came to recognize that our families, our community, was incarcerated behind barbed wire simply because of racism, economic greed, and the failure of political leadership. And as we mark the 75th anniversary and we celebrate these victories, we find ourselves feeling troubled. The political and social climate in our country feels strangely familiar. Calls to exclude people based on religion, or to refuse refugees and immigrants entry to our country, or to create a Muslim registry emanate from many elected officials today. At the same time, a dramatic rise in racist hate crimes, anti-immigrant violence, and brazen displays of racist symbols is happening all over our country. Unfortunately, this is all too familiar to the Japanese community. We remember Executive Order 9066 was signed, and the unjust incarceration of some 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry simply happened because of racism and a failure of political leadership. We remember that the signing of EO 9066 and the forced removal of our community was accompanied by a vicious anti-Japanese racism, xenophobia, and racist violence. Restrictive laws denying citizenship to our Oji-sans and Oba-sans, banning immigration, and creating a registry. These laws were passed leading up to and following the forced removal. The parallels to today are stunning. Racist persecution, xenophobia, and unjust laws have a long history in our country, unfortunately. Long before our Oji-sans and Oba-sans were called the enemy and locked up behind barbed wire, many other communities suffered similar fates. The forced removal of native peoples from their land, the deportations of thousands of people of Mexican heritage, including United States citizens, or the violation of civil rights of the African American community, all served as a blueprint for what our families were subjected to. For many years, we chose not to think about what took place here. For decades, almost no one talked about or wrote about America's concentration camps. But that changed 48 years ago. Here at Manzanar in 1969, some 200 people came, led by Warren Furatani, accompanied by my mother, to try and understand what happened here. Coming here and enduring the return to the scene of the crime forced those who had endured life behind barbed wire to remember and to tell their stories. Remembering can be a powerful act. It can force those who endured great hardship to seek justice and demand change. By remembering what occurred here so many years ago, we have transformed Manzanar. We have transformed Manzanar from a scarred, barren landscape of a former concentration camp to what we see here today. This alone is cause for celebration. But we also celebrate that our Congress and our nation apologize and recognize what happened to our community was unjust and unconstitutional. We celebrate the service of the National Park Service and the impressive work that is being done here at Manzanar. It's also impressive work happening at other confinement sites around our country, like at Tule Lake. But the celebration of our victories, the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Manzanar National Historic Site, is tempered by the knowledge that we must remind ourselves of the fragility of our democracy. We must remember that the democratic principles enshrined in our Constitution must be defended at all times, but especially during times of fear-mongering and demagogic appeals to racism and xenophobia. And that is why today we must continue to organize and act. We must choose to act, because when we act, we send a message. Your presence here sends a message. It is in many ways the same message that was sent in 1969. The message is we are a proud and strong people who have rights. We belong here, and we will not be silent any longer. Thank you.